Okay, this is Chapter 17, Video 1, and we are reading in The Rape of the Mind by Mind.wmv. From Old to New Courage. Who resists longer and why? What then can give a man strength to resist a mental-cidal assault? What made it possible for so many thousands to survive mentally and physically the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps and the communist POW camps? The answer is essentially simple. Men yield primarily because at some point they are overwhelmed by their unconscious conflicts. These conflicts, kept under control in normal circumstances, come to the surface under the strain of mental-cidal pressure. The stronger the inner conflicts and the greater the pressure, the greater the tendency to yield. Men withstand pressure when these conflicts cannot be so easily aroused or have been inwardly overcome. The simple answer itself contains a clinical paradox. One of the characteristics of severe neurosis and of some cases of pathological character structure is that unconscious conflicts are so severe that they are either repressed or so deeply that let me read that again. One of the characteristics of severe neurosis and of some cases of pathological character structure is that unconscious conflicts are so severe that they are either repressed so deeply that the sufferer is not vaguely aware of their existence, or they are transformed into a set of overt attitudes which are more acceptable to the individual and therefore easier to handle. If the severe neurotic permitted himself to feel his real conflicts, they would dominate his life completely. Consequently, he exerts tremendous force to hold down this explosive material. The man who is always rebellious, never growing from healthy rebellion into healthy maturity, may have transformed some basic and profound conflict in his own personality into a chronic resistance against any kind of social demand. Psychiatric examination of returned POWs from Korea showed that many of the men who resisted enemy propaganda most strongly were those with a history of lifelong rebellion against all authority, from parents through teachers to army superiors. They were troublemakers wherever they were, among their friends as well as among their enemies. I like that. And that was said by, he's quoting Segal, or paraphrasing Segal. Let me read that one more time because that was a very profound thing that was said. Psychiatric examination of returned POWs from Korea showed that many of the men who resisted enemy propaganda most strongly were those with a history of lifelong rebellion against all authority, from parents through teachers to army superiors. They were troublemakers wherever they went, among their friends as well as among their enemies. Well, that's good news. This negative side of the coin is only part of the picture. A man with deep self-knowledge, aware of his own inner conflicts and aware, too, of what the enemy is trying to do to him, is prepared to meet and resist the attack. I interrogated many people who went through the tortures of Nazi prison and concentration camps. Some were ordinary folk with no political affiliations. Some were members of the resistance. A few were psychologists and psychoanalysts. Those who understood themselves, who were willing to accept danger and challenge, and who realized even faintly how bestial man can be, were able to stand the harrowing concentration camp experience. They were not defeated by their own innocent complexity and lack of insight into themselves and others, but were protected by their knowledge and inquisitive alertness. There are other factors which play an important role too. My investigations have made it abundantly clear to me that those who can resist, who can maintain their strength under marginal circumstances, never feel that they are alone. As long as they can think of their loved ones at home, as long as they can look forward to seeing them again, as long as they know their families are faithfully waiting for them, they can maintain their strength and keep the unconscious drive to give in from taking over their lives. The love and affection we get and gather in our hearts is the greatest stimulus to endurance. Not only does it provide a goal toward which we can direct our lives, it also gives us an inner assurance and a sense of worth that make it possible for us to keep in check the self-destroying conflicts. This knowledge of loving and being loved is not limited to love of family or friends. People in whom a religious faith or a political conviction is a deeply rooted living thing have this same sense of belonging or of being needed, of being loved. Their allegiance is to a whole group or to a set of ideals rather than to individuals. Such people beliefs are real and concrete as people or objects. They provide a bulwark against loneliness, terror, fantasies conjured up by the unconscious, and the unleashing of deep-seated conflicts, a bulwark that is as strong as the memory of love. Yet such mentally strong people form a minority in our conflict-ridden society. Experience has shown that robust... Who's calling me now? Well, it's going to have to wait. Experience has shown that robust athletes cannot withstand the concentration camp or the POW camp experiences any better than can their physically weaker brothers. Nor is intellect alone, turn that off, nor is intellect alone any real help in fending off the daily assaults on the will. On the contrary, it can provide useful rationalization for surrender. Mental backbone and moral courage go deeper than the intellect. Fortitude is not a physical or intellectual quality. It is something we get from the cradle, from the consistency of our parents' behavior, and from their beliefs and faith. It has become increasingly rare in a world of changing values and little faith. The myth of courage. There is something in the glorious myth of strength and courage that confuses all of us. Physical strength is too frequently confused with spiritual strength. Bravery and heroism are indeed needed qualities in battle. Yet analysis of soldiers in combat shows that each one of them has to conduct a constant battle against his own fears. The brave are the ones who can check their fears, who can cope with the paralyzing fantasies that fear creates, and who can control the desire to regress into childish escapism. A man cannot be forced to become a hero, and it is ridiculous to punish him if he is not. It is as pointless as punishing him for bleeding or fainting. The hero, the man who offers himself up to death for the sake of others, is found more in mythology than in reality. Psychology and anthropology have shown that the hero myth is related to eternal dream images. The hero symbolizes the rebellious new generation, the strong son becoming stronger than the father. He symbolizes, too, our wish to be mature and to take responsibility in our own hands. We need the myth for the inspiration it offers us. We commemorate with posthumous glorification the heroic feats of the few who have throughout history offered themselves up as sacrifices to their comrades or to society. Yet what do we know of their real motives? During the Second World War, I gave psychiatric treatment to many soldiers. As I spoke and worked with them, I became increasingly conscious of how dangerous it is to stick the simple label hero or coward on any man. One of my patients, for example, was a boy who had received a high military decoration because he had stuck to a lonely place with his machine gun, firing automatically until the enemy was forced to withdraw. In the course of his treatment, the boy confessed that his apparent heroism was really the result of a paralyzing fear which had made it impossible for him to follow his commander's order to retreat. And that's where I'll stop. And this was video number 1 of chapter 17. We are reading from The Rape of the Mind by Joost and Malou, MD, and I will see you in video number 2.